only uses steel from Japan. Each blade takes years to craft and goes through a rigorous 19-step inspection process with a lifetime guarantee. The knives come in a beautiful heavy-duty ash wood box, makes it a really great gift, easy to store as well. On the Kamikoto website, you can see a map of the Michelin star chefs all over the world using Kamikoto knives. My Kamikoto knives at home have been performing great for years. You really just can't beat the feel of a nice Japanese knife, perfectly balanced in your hand. And Kamikoto is now running a big Black Friday sale. My audience gets an extra $50 off. Go to kamikoto.com/Pacman and use the code Pacman. That's KAMIKOTO.com/Pacman. Use code Pacman for an extra $50 off. The info is in the podcast notes. I've had such trouble finding a great razor where I am not cutting myself or getting those nicks on my skin, which are so common with the cheap disposable razors. You have to meet our sponsor, Henson Shaving. Henson actually manufactures parts for the International Space Station and the Mars rover, and they are bringing that exact same precision engineering to the shaving experience. It hurts when you shave because blades extend too far, and thus they wobble slightly. But with their aerospace-grade CNC machines, Henson is able to make metal razors that extend just 0.0013 inches. That's less than the thickness of a human hair, which means a secure, stable blade with a vibration-free shave. It also has built-in channels to evacuate the hair and the cream. No more clogs, no more rubbing your thumb on the razor to get the hair out. I use Henson at home. Shaving is a great experience now. Henson wants to be the best razor, not the best razor business, which means you only need to buy it once and it's awesome. Go to hensonshaving.com/Pacman, add a razor and a 100-pack of blades to your cart, then enter the code Pacman to get the 100 blades for free. That is a 3-year supply. That's HENSON shaving.com/Pacman. Use code Pacman. The link is in the podcast notes. The David Pacman Show is an audience-supported program. We do an extra show every single day called The Bonus Show just for our members. We also provide an audio and video feed of every show, commercial-free, published about 5 or 6 hours before the entire show is published. You can get access to all of that at joinpacman.com. And you can also use the coupon code 24startsnow to get yourself a nice little discount. That's all at joinpacman.com. I would love for you to sign up and support the work that we do. Mike Pence malfunctioned at a completely cringeworthy town hall on CNN last night. This is absolutely beyond belief. Former Vice President Mike Pence had a really bad town hall on CNN last night in which he, among other things, got a lady's name wrong and then just went silent for 5 seconds. Really, really odd. The bigger question is why he's even doing town halls on CNN right now. You might say, well, it's because he's maybe running in 24. Maybe. Right now, the predictive markets don't look very good for Mike Pence. So check out this clip. This is one of the wildest clips I've seen. A lady named Andrea asks a question, and Pence calls her Barbara, and then it gets really weird, and Pence appears to malfunction. Now, I admit, I watched this about 10 times last night. I was laughing so hard to myself, I almost woke up my sleeping baby daughter. Check this out. Now, the Andrea's last name is Barber Dansby, so Barbara wasn't completely pulled out of thin air, but her name isn't Barbara, it's Andrea. When Andrea corrects Mike Pence, he sort of seems to freeze and glitch. It was almost Trump-like. Check this out.
And this freedom based on Roe also continue.
It's time for Nicole Sandler's What's News from NicoleSandler.com and the Progressive Voices Network.
There is no greater official honor for me than to stand on this floor and to speak for the people of San Francisco. This I will continue to do as a member of the House, speaking for the people of San Francisco, serving the great state of California, and defending our Constitution. And with great confidence in our caucus, I will not seek re-election to Democratic leadership in the next Congress.
Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi on Thursday announced that she would not seek to stay on as leader of the Democrats in the next Congress. And she spoke the words that it really was time to hear.
For me, the hours come for a new generation to lead the Democratic caucus that I so deeply respect.
Nancy Pelosi spent 2 decades leading the Democratic Party in the House. And at 82 years old, she said it's time to turn control over to the next generation. Good move. So about her 2 lieutenants, the 83-year-old Steny Hoyer said he also plans to step aside as the number 2 Democrat, though he will remain in the House representing Maryland. As for the 3rd leadership member, Jim Clyburn, House Majority Whip, says he wants to stay in leadership, but he agreed to seek a new position. So there's that. So who's coming in? Well, as expected, Friday morning, Hakeem Jeffries announced his bid for House Democratic leader in a generational shift that would make history. If elected by his fellow House Democrats, as is expected, the 52-year-old New Yorker would be the first black lawmaker to lead a party in Congress. Earlier Friday morning, Catherine Clark, Congresswoman from Massachusetts, announced her bid for Minority Whip, the number 2 position, while Congressman Pete Aguilar of California is expected to run for caucus chairman. That's the number 3 position. And speaking for myself alone, though it's nice to see a generational change in leadership, a more progressive-friendly leadership trio would have been much preferred. Just saying. So while it's now settled that the Republicans will control the House of Representatives and the Democrats will control the Senate, there are still a few races undecided. In Colorado, MAGA candidate Lauren Boebert is headed to a recount after a surprise strong challenge from her Democratic opponent, Adam Frisch, who condemned Boebert as an angertainment celebrity. With almost all of the votes counted, Boebert leads by 0.16 percentage points, or 551 votes out of nearly 327,000 counted. And on Thursday, as Nancy Pelosi was delivering her speech announcing that she'd stepped down from her leadership, the Republicans showed an unsurprising lack of civility. The man poised to become Speaker, Kevin McCarthy, didn't even bother to show up, while other members of the House Republican caucus press conference, alleging that they'd uncovered crimes committed by President Joe Biden's family and announced that they plan on issuing subpoenas and drawing attention to the Bidens, focusing on the president's son, Hunter, even though there's no evidence suggesting that President Biden was involved in his son's business dealings. And it begs the question, have you checked out the Trump family? Moving on to Twitter. Hundreds of Twitter employees resigned Thursday before a 5 p.m. deadline that the new owner, Elon Musk, had given for people to decide whether to leave or sign a pledge agreeing to work, quote, long hours at a new hardcore version of Twitter. More key engineers left than expected, which one employee said would cause the system to stop if it hits a problem. Elon Musk, who blew $44 billion to acquire Twitter, was joined by some of his advisors to meet with some so-called critical employees, hoping to get them to stay. Musk had earlier laid off half of the company's staff and fired internal critics. And following the mass exodus on Thursday, the employees who chose to remain received an email telling them that Twitter's offices will be temporarily closed and badge access will be restricted through Monday. Is this thing still on? A federal judge on Thursday blocked a key portion of Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' Stop Woke Act. You know, the bill intended to police speech and classroom content at state colleges and universities. U.S. District Judge Mark Walker called the measure, quote, positively dystopian. He said it violated the First Amendment rights of both students and faculty, who, under this law, had been given standing to sue educational institutions for exposing them to potentially uncomfortable material, including the 1619 Project on American Racial History. When he introduced the bill in 2021, DeSantis said it would give, quote, businesses, employees, children, and families tools to fight back against woke indoctrination. The ruling from Judge Walker ran 138 pages, and it's being heralded as a major win for campus free speech by the groups who challenged the state. DeSantis, as you would expect, has said he will appeal. Well, thousands of unionized Starbucks workers at more than 100 locations across the country walked off the job Thursday to protest the company's refusal to engage in good faith negotiations with stores that have voted to organize. Workers United is the union representing thousands of Starbucks employees. They dubbed the nationwide day of action.
Mary had a little lamb.
We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America. From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
In certain extraordinary cases, it is in the public interest to appoint a special prosecutor to independently manage an investigation and prosecution. Based on recent developments, including the former president's announcement that he is a candidate for president in the next election, and the sitting president's stated intention to be a candidate as well, I have concluded that it is in the public interest to appoint a special counsel.
Oh, man.
Such an appointment underscores the department's commitment to both independence and accountability in particularly sensitive matters. It also allows prosecutors and agents to continue their work expeditiously and to make decisions indisputably guided only by the facts and the law.
All right. Oh, man. I tell you right now, when Hillary Clinton announced for president, I didn't see a special counsel be appointed. Just make a note that I said that. Okay. So there's Merrick Garland today about, hour ago now, saying that he feels like because Donald Trump announced for the presidency that he needs to appoint a special counsel to look into whether or not there was an interference by Donald Trump or any entity or any other person into the transfer, the peaceful transfer of power in this country, and also into the documents case. So he's appointing a special counsel. Now, here's the thing. This is all I know, okay? I know that when you appoint a special counsel, you have to have a team in place, the special counsel himself, and I know it's a man, his name is Jack Smith, just so you know. The special counsel himself has to have a team in place, so that means that Jack Smith has to put a team in place. He also then asks for a budget to pay that team, so that has to happen. A budget has to be submitted. A budget has to be approved. The money has to be transferred. Then you also, as an attorney, as a lawyer, as a team of lawyers, you now have to learn the case. You have to read the depositions of those who have been deposed. You have to figure out, all the moving parts of the case, all the people in the case, all the entities that might be, chargeable in this case. This is not an overnight process. This is not something that can happen overnight. All right. So that said, the people who are for the independent counsel and the appointment of an independent counsel to maintain the integrity of the Department of Justice, to maintain a nonpartisan, stance in an investigation into a presidentially announced candidate, Donald Trump, they're saying, well, look, the case that the Department of Justice has already is very far along. It's ready, it's well developed. Apparently, Merrick Garland was probably ready to indict. And now that Donald Trump has announced that he's running for president, he didn't want to give the appearance that, his boss who's running against Donald Trump was ordering him or commanding him or telling him or instructing him or doing anything at all. And so he wants to appoint an independent counsel so that it doesn't look partisan. I got news for you. The maggots in this country, they don't give a damn where the indictment comes from. They don't care if it comes from an independent counsel. They don't care if it comes from Merrick Garland. They don't care if it comes from DOJ. They don't care if he's arrested by the FBI. They will think, no matter who indicts Donald Trump, that person was partisan in the indictment. So I don't know what this accomplishes in the long haul if you're looking to win hearts and minds of maggots. So, but then others say what I say, and that is that this takes time. This is going to take a long-ass time because, first of all, the guy that he's selected, I don't know anything about him except that he works at The Hague. He works on war crimes. He is right now involved in a war crime investigation into war crimes committed in Kosovo. Now, just in case anybody had any questions about how fast the wheels of justice can grind to justice, Kosovo. Yes, I said Kosovo. Go look up when Kosovo and the war crimes in Kosovo happened. And this guy is, a guy who worked in Brooklyn. He was, prosecutor there. He worked in Manhattan. He was a prosecutor there. Then he worked in Middle Tennessee as a prosecutor there. Then he started doing war crimes. Now he's back at The Hague doing war crimes investigations. And now he's been tapped by Merrick Garland to be the special prosecutor who will or will not choose to indict Donald Trump or any person or entity that interfered in the peaceful transfer of power in this country. So, and I will tell you what I know just from reading a quick couple of 3 newspaper articles. Wall Street Journal has one, New York Times has one, and the Washington Post has one about who this guy is. His name is Jack Smith. And they're saying that Jack Smith, obviously, is a prosecutor who works on war crimes at The Hague, and he's investigating war crimes in Kosovo. But that also, and so he is actually based over there. I mean, he lives in Germany, I think. And also, he just had knee surgery that he's recovering from. And so and that's why he wasn't at the press conference that we just saw, because he's recovering from knee surgery. So for anybody that thinks that Donald Trump was going to be indicted yesterday or hoped, like me, that he would be indicted yesterday or that it'll happen after, I tried to give them the benefit of the doubt and say, well, the 60-day rule, because there is one last election to be held in Georgia, the runoff between, back crap crazy boy and the legitimate, incumbent, the person who is well qualified to be a senator from the state of Georgia, Raphael Warnock. Because we have this runoff election, waiting to occur, I was willing to say that's the reason why Merrick Garland hadn't moved to indict Donald Trump or anybody else who tried to interfere in the peaceful transfer of power, because they self-imposed this rule from the Office of Legal Counsel that says that you don't indict somebody 60 days, you don't indict a political player 60 days ahead of an election. So I thought, oh, well, maybe the clock started ticking again because, of the... No. They're going to hand it off to a special counsel. And this is not a commentary on the person, because I don't know who this person is any more than, you do, unless you work inside DOJ or The Hague, or unless you worked at the Brooklyn prosecutor's office, or unless you worked at the Middle Tennessee prosecutor's office, or unless you worked at the Office of Legal Counsel. I don't think anybody, in this audience, just to couch it, knows who he is. So this has nothing to do with, a commentary on him or his integrity or his stature or his ability or his lack of ability or any of those things. It has nothing to do with it. People that do know him have said he's so apolitical that nobody even knows what his politics are. He doesn't have an interest in politics. He's strictly a guy who investigates complex crimes. That is who he is. That is what he loves to do. That is what he does. And so there's no politics associated with him that I can, tell you about right now. So this has nothing to do with him. This has to do with time. This has to do with the ability of somebody to staff up an independent counsel team to get the budget for an independent counsel office and team, for that team to then learn the case, for that team to actually read the depositions that have been taken in the case or any of the evidence that the January 6th committee is offering or offered to the Department of Justice for their review. This cannot possibly happen soon. All because Donald Trump announced that he's running for president, and nobody wants to see him run for president, not even the evangelicals in this country, not even the Republicans that are currently serving in the Senate or the House want to see him run for president. But he did it for this reason. He did it just for this, to kick the can down the road, to play for time, to buy time, to, move it down the road. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's sad, it's sick, it's unbelievable, and it's happening. It's happening. I'm not happy, and it's freaking Friday.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes. Randi Rhodes. Randi Rhodes. RandiRhodes.com.
If you're like me, you're probably a bit frustrated with the state of our political system today. So why does American democracy look the way it does? And how can we make it more responsive to the people it was formed to serve? Democracy Decoded, a podcast by Campaign Legal Center, examines our government and discusses innovative ideas that could lead to a stronger, more transparent, accountable, and inclusive democracy. In Season 2, host Simone Leeper covers everything you need to know about voting in the U.S. She speaks with experts from across the country and voters representing impacted communities about the deliberate barriers to voting that exist today. And she asks, how can we make our voting systems more inclusive? Because our democracy works best when every voter can participate. Listen to the latest season at democracydecoded.org. or wherever you get your podcasts. democracydecoded.org.
America's political, corporate, and media establishments were cocksure about their prognostications that a powerful red wave was about to hit America in this month's elections. It would sweep Democrats out and push Republicans into office all across America, they exclaimed. How shocking and embarrassing, then, that their raging wave turned out to be just a little ripple. Republicans ran poorly and many Democrats ran well. Still, the Democratic Party as a whole should have done better if its Don't Rock the Boat leadership had been gutsier, more progressive, and, yes, more democratic. Well, murmured the party's Washington hierarchy, we can't get too far ahead of the people. Really? Why not ask the people themselves? That's the virtue of the ballot initiative system. It allows grassroots groups to put issues up for a vote, rather than letting the public agenda be controlled by a clique of lobbyists, legislators, and party line followers. This year, there were 132 of these initiatives on the ballots in 37 states, and more on local ballots. And vote after vote showed that the people are way ahead of the political insiders in support of strong progressive policies. By big margins, 3 states said to hell with a Republican Supreme Court enshrining women's abortion rights in their state constitutions. South Dakota, supposedly a right-wing bastion, shoved their GOP governor and legislators aside to expand Medicaid health coverage to the state's low-income families. In bright red Nebraska, nearly 60% of voters said yes to a $15 minimum wage. A big majority in Illinois amended the state constitution to guarantee collective bargaining rights for workers. 70% of New Mexico voters made funding of early childhood education a constitutional requirement. This is Jim Hightower saying, for more information, go to ballotpedia.org.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1785. That was the day the General Society of Mechanics and Tradesmen of the City of New York was founded. 22 skilled craftsmen with the motto, by hammer in hand, all arts do stand, met on Pine Street to form a benevolent organization that could provide culture, education, and social services to craftsmen and their families. 2 months later, founders met for their annual meeting. They represented many of the city's trades, including hatters, butchers, sailmakers, bolters, and comb makers. In his book, Chance Democratic, historian Sean Willett states, The General Society was intended to be a semi-political umbrella organization for all of the city's independent mechanics to help oversee the trades and secure favorable legislation from local and national government. The group captured the ideal of mutuality and craft pride essential to artisan fraternities since the Middle Ages.
Don't give up. Don't give up. What's true?
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
The special counsel will conduct parts of the first investigation I just mentioned. The investigation into whether any person or entity unlawfully interfered with the transfer of power following the 2020 presidential election or with the certification of the Electoral College vote held on or about January 6. The special counsel will also conduct the investigation involving classified documents and other presidential records, as well as the possible obstruction of that investigation. Today, I signed an order appointing Jack Smith to serve as special counsel. The order authorizes him to continue the ongoing investigation into both of the matters that I have just described and to prosecute any federal crimes that may arise from those investigations.
All right. So, listen, it's an easy call to say that whoever a new attorney would be in cases, plural, like these, even if these cases are well developed, even if these cases have gotten to the point where they have evidence and provable, things that they can show a court that clearly show that laws were broken and that the investigation into these laws being broken were obstructed by the subject of the investigation, which, we can all see with our own freaking eyes, right? Even if that's as, the point at which Jack Smith, the new independent counsel, comes into the fold, even if that's where he picks up his team, because you can't do this alone. This is complex, right? This is an amazing investigation that's been going on with the January 6th committee, and then the DOJ was asking for documents for a long time, and then finally, when the January 6th committee was able to show its case, it said, okay, now we'll start to provide these documents to the Department of Justice, and now Department of Justice is going to hand it over to an independent counsel. That independent counsel has to learn what's in those documents. That independent counsel and that team has to, read them. They have to understand, what they're doing, what's who's who and what's what, and all the moving parts of two separate criminal cases, plus obstruction of both. So I don't know. It's almost 2023, people. It really is. The insurrection, the interference, the violent, insurrectionists. Look, I'll tell you this, Stuart Rhodes, Elmer, come to find out his name is Elmer Stuart Rhodes, the head of the Oath Keepers, the founder of the Oath Keepers, and four of his, compadres in violence, who used violence to try and interfere and overturn the results of the 2020 election. Their trial is just now in closing arguments. Their trial has just now started to wrap up, right? So the prosecution in Elmer's case just finished their summation, their closing arguments, and said things like, this was not just bluster, because, the defense for Stuart Rhodes and the others, for the other Oath Keepers, for the Watkins girl. And what's amazing is Watkins is... she's transgendered, not that I care, but Jessica Watkins is a transgendered girl. And I don't know why the Republicans are so, willing to abuse and bully transgendered people when one of their most beloved heroes of the movement is Jessica Watkins. Okay, she's from Woodstock, Ohio. She said her actions that day were really stupid, but she wasn't part of a plan. She was just swept along with the mob, which she said it was like Black Friday. It was like being at the store for Black Friday. That's what it felt like to her. She didn't really plan to be there. She didn't really plan to do anything violent. She just dressed that way. I don't know. Thomas Caldwell, he's a Navy vet from Virginia. He said that, the messages that they introduced as evidence that showed he was trying to ferry weapons across the Potomac from Virginia into Washington, he said he was never serious about it. He was never serious about that. That was never real. And then Kelly Meggs and Kenneth Harrelson, both from Florida, they just refused to testify, right? So anyway, the closing arguments by the U.S. attorney have concluded, and now the defense is going to make their closing argument, and then they'll throw it to the jury. And so I'm guessing maybe the end of next week or the week after that, because, it's a short week next week because it's Thanksgiving, and maybe we'll get a verdict in something that happened 2 years ago. And here in the United States, that's pretty swift justice. That's pretty fast. This, on the other hand, this is going on, with Donald Trump. We lived through the Mueller investigation. And by the way, I will just tell you that one of the GOP strategists that Donald Trump pardoned in 2020 for a different campaign finance crime was convicted yesterday of, funneling Russian money into the Trump campaign. He was convicted yesterday. His name's Jesse Barton, 44 years old. He was pardoned by Trump in 2020, along with Roger Stone and a whole host of other lunatic, fringy people like Bannon, etc. On that same day, okay, this is a guy who used to work for Senator Rand Paul, and before him, he married Representative Ron Paul's granddaughter. Ron Paul's granddaughter is Benton's wife, okay? And Rand Paul... he helped win his Senate seat, right? He got pardoned 2 days before Christmas with Paul Manafort, Roger Stone, and Jared Kushner's daddy that same day. Anyway, this guy, Jesse Benton, he was pardoned by Trump, like I said, for a different campaign finance crime. And then he was indicted again on 6 counts related to facilitating an illegal foreign campaign donation. And yesterday, he was found guilty on all 6 counts. The evidence at trial showed that he had bought a $25,000 ticket to the Republican National Committee event on behalf of a Russian naval officer who was running for parliament in Russia at the time. And obviously, he knew that it was prohibited by our law to have foreign money go into the campaign coffers of a man running for the presidency of the United States. But he did it anyway. And finally, yesterday, he was convicted of doing that, after he was pardoned for a different campaign crime. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if Trump's ever going to go to jail. I honestly don't know. I will also tell you the other trial that's wrapping up having to do with Donald Trump's, fraudulent behavior. This on the tax fraud case, the Weisselberg case. Okay, so Weisselberg finally was on the stand for a couple days testifying, right? And he had testified that, yes, he did, take perks. And yes, he did it to avoid paying, to save the Trump organization from having to pay him double what those perks were worth. Because if they had increased his salary, they would have to double the increase to account for taxes that would be owed on an increased salary. So he decided that he would, take rent. He decided he would take car lease payments for 2 Mercedes-Benz. He would take checks for tuition for his grandkids instead of, going to Trump and asking Trump for a raise, right? To protect the Trump organization's tax position. But when he was asked, whether or not, Donald Trump authorized it, he said yes. And when he was asked whether or not Donald Trump, was part of the scheme, he said, no, this was my own greed. The Trump family had nothing to do with it. So I don't even know if we'll get a conviction there. These people.
Clear for takeoff.
This is Stephanie Miller, and here's what you missed. You know me, I'm a happy, clappy liberal, so I'm our Silver Linings playbook now is that it is going to be just a show class in how not to govern these next 2 years with the Republicans in control of the House, right? It's going to be the worst 2 years of Kevin McCarthy's life. It is popcorn time. Do we already have? Yeah, where is her? Oh, give me 20. Yes, Marjorie Taylor Greene. I mean, seriously. Right.
He has said publicly that we're going to do all of these investigations into everything you just named. We're definitely doing these investigations, and he's allowing the chairman of the committees to run it. I'm very excited to serve on oversight. That's the committee I've asked for, and no one has told me no about anything. I am going to be pursuing many things, and I'm thrilled to be able to do that.
No one's told
It's
me
going to
no.
be Kevin at a Chuck E. Cheese, just right, kids screaming. Right, no one will tell anyone no.
Right.
Is
right.
the congressman writing with poop? I think the congressman's writing with poop.
Adam Kinzinger on all this.
He's going to be completely hostage. So first off, Marjorie Taylor Greene recently said that she's all in with Kevin McCarthy. Listen, she doesn't say something unless she's been promised something. Matt Gaetz is against Marjorie Taylor Greene because he wants to be more famous than her, and she's kind of stealing his thunder. Any one of those people, a couple, two or three, can deny him the 218 votes he needs. And so he's going to be walking around making deals with everybody, cutting every deal he can with the crazy.
What did they say they were going to win? 40 seats?
Yeah.
They just barely eked this
I
out.
think they would always start at 40 and say, could be 40, could be 120.
Right. But I mean, this is exactly what America voted against, right? And I guess that is the silver lining, right? Is that this will be on display now for 2 years.
Hear all this and more on the next Stephanie Miller Show.
Nobody has ever done what we've done in the last 4 years.
Their entire economic plan, tax cuts for the rich and corporations.
And record-breaking unemployment.
The worst jobs report on record.
Trump is the only modern president to leave office with fewer jobs than when he took office.
The Trump administration formally asking the Supreme Court to overturn the Affordable Care Act. This could leave up to 23 million Americans without coverage.
I hope that they end. It'll be so good if they end. You also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
Do you believe in punishment for abortion? Yes or no?
There has to be some form of punishment.
For the woman?
Yeah, there has to be some form. And if I win, we will treat those people from January 6th fairly. And if it requires pardons, we will give them pardons.
America's political, corporate, and media establishments were cocksure about their prognostications that a powerful red wave was about to hit America in this month's elections. It would sweep Democrats out and push Republicans into office all across America, they exclaimed. How shocking and embarrassing, then, that their raging wave turned out to be just a little ripple. Republicans ran poorly and many Democrats ran well. Still, the Democratic Party as a whole should have done better if its Don't Rock the Boat leadership had been gutsier, more progressive, and, yes, more democratic. Well, murmur the party's Washington hierarchy, we can't get too far ahead of the people.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randy, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Throughout his career, Jack Smith has built a reputation as an impartial and determined prosecutor who leads teams with energy and focus to follow the facts wherever they lead. As special counsel, he will exercise independent prosecutorial judgment to decide whether charges should be brought. Although the special counsel will not be subject to the day-to-day supervision of any official of the department, he must comply with the regulations, procedures, and policies of the department. I will ensure that the special counsel receives the resources to conduct this work quickly and completely. Given the work to date and Mr. Smith's prosecutorial experience, I am confident that this appointment will not slow the completion of these investigations.
I hope you're right. I want to believe you so much. I want to believe you, Merrick. I want to believe you, Mr. Garland. I want to believe in the Department of Justice and the effort to hold, people that go on, multi-year crime sprees, historic crime sprees, accountable for their historic crime sprees. I would love to believe that America is that place where people actually meet the bar of justice after historic crimes have been committed against our nation in order to empower a person who is just bizarre and creepy and mean and arrogant and egotistical and lazy. Roberta in Minnesota.
Hello.
Hello.
I guess basically what I'm thinking is that I think we should take him at his word. We only get one bite at this apple with Trump. If we screw it up, we're done. If Mueller thinks that it needs to go this direction,
Mueller?
No, isn't that his name? The
Merrick Garland
guy who's Garland. Ugh. Yeah. Anyway, if Merrick Garland thinks that this is a way to go, I mean, have we had leaks from the people on his team to say otherwise? I haven't heard any leaks.
Leaks about what?
And so, about anything to contradict what Merrick Garland said this afternoon.
What are you talking about?
Well, he's saying that he's doing it and it's not going to slow things down. And he's saying, obviously, if he's doing it, that this is the way to go.
So what does that mean about...
And I'm saying take the man at his word. Assume he knows what he's talking about and counsel a little bit of patience and let it play out.
It's been playing out for 2.5 years already. This has been going...
Well, it's been playing out in
Roberta, if you or I had orchestrated an attack on our Capitol, you and me would both be sitting in the Danbury minimum security prison for women. Okay, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, but I mean, there is a different standard when someone's that high up, and there are
that
things
can't
to go
possibly
through.
be okay with you, is it?
Well, but that is the way it is. And so if they have to thread the needle and dance on the head of a pin to get to the right solution, then I say go for it.
Yeah, and
if they come out of the gate and stumble, we're done. Then justice will never be done.
If they would,
I'm just counseling to let them, take the time to do it right, because they're not going to get a second chance.
And doing it right means handing it off to somebody?
Well, if handing it off to him ends up getting justice and gets either the 14th Amendment or jail time or whatever it is that's going to come up and give the orange-headed wonder his comeuppance, then yes, that's what, then hand it off and do it right. And if this man who's done these kind of things before is dealing with someone who's done even bigger stuff before, thinks that this is the right way to go, I'm saying take them at their word. Trust them with it.
Okay, well,
And
you have more
counseling,
faith than
the
I
more
do.
patience on top of the patience we've already had and shown.
Okay, well, you are Midwestern nice. I'll give you that. I don't know. I mean,
you make it sound like such a cut.
Oh, I didn't mean it as an insult. I mean that I'm aggressive, and I am so tired of this person, this man, this entity of defrauding people and cheating and doing criminal things that are so obvious to each and every person who will, look at what he's done. The idea that, Russian money was in that campaign, the idea that, just now, yesterday, some guy finally gets convicted, a guy that Trump pardoned for other crimes having to do with campaign finance. I mean, the fact that Rudy Giuliani is getting away, the fact that, Eastman probably will never be prosecuted, the fact that, Sidney Powell's walking around out there, and that the only thing that we seem to be able to do is sue That's all we seem to be able to do. Sue for money damages. And like 5-10 years from now, you'll see a jury and, like Alex Jones, 2012, the Sandy Hook. It's 10 years later. You finally have like multiple juries find him guilty in a civil setting where the only possible punishment is money damages, and then he declares bankruptcy and says, well, you might as well try and get blood from a stone. I just
you're making a huge assumption there, though, because like you said, the guy with the Russian money was just convicted.
Yeah,
this thing could be so much bigger than even we realize. That in order to incorporate it and get it one and done, they have to take the time to do it.
So I would just say that there are plenty of prosecutors in this here country who know how to put together a RICO Act violation, and that the Department of Justice, the Attorney General of the United States, should probably be one of them.
Well, except that maybe what they're doing is they maybe have those things, but there may be a prize that's even bigger. That if they take the patience and take the time
but I don't
to
think
put it in a package.
I don't think it needs to be bigger. I just think it needs to be.
I'm not sure, but the thing of it is bigger than just Trump is what I mean.
Well, of course it's bigger than just Trump. There are people.
Right, and they.
There are people sitting on their podcast right now who are still free to broadcast, who knew the day before that all hell was going to break loose, told people to strap in. And they're still broadcasting. They're still raking in the bucks. They're still, shaking down their own viewers. These are people that ripped off their own listeners, their own viewers, to the tune of $1 million, stole from them, and said, we will build the wall, and then pocketed that money. And they're the same people. And sitting there broadcasting, doing it even, today. I just think that there's something so wrong with our system. We know, we heard the evidence. We know that the President of the United States of America, at the very least, watched the entire attack on our Capitol on television that day. Watched it on TV and didn't lift a finger. Why does it have to be big?
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes. RandiRhodes.com.
Donald Trump is back. Angry, vengeful, ready to take back the White House and wreck America again. And who's going to stop him? These weaklings and losers? Business leaders? They'll bend the knee and write the checks. The press? Too many are just here for the show, ready to both sides America to death. The law? He'll ignore it, like he's always done. No, the only people who will stop Trump are Americans ready to put country over party, ready to put differences aside to save this country, ready to work, ready to fight, ready to stand up when he knocks America down. Because it's not about left and right. It's not about rich and poor, black or white. Like it's always been, the choice is simple. It's America or Trump.
What is politics about? MAGA Republicans believe it is all about chaos, owning the libs, white grievance and anger. That's wrong. Governing is about making our lives better. In just one piece of legislation, Democratic senators took action to lower prescription drug prices, giving Medicare the ability to negotiate with Big Pharma, shifted tax burden from the middle class to the very wealthy, protected our future with the most sweeping climate change action in U.S. history. What do you want? Anger or results?
Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the screamers, the criminals, the carnival barkers and their loyal clowns, the ones who don't like differences. They hate the rules and they have no respect for you. You can't reason with them or disagree with them. They glorify villains and vilify heroes. About the only thing you shouldn't do is ignore them, because they have a plan to push America backwards. And while some may see them as crazy, we know they're dangerous. Because if we don't fight, the people who are crazy enough to think they can stop progress will.
Glad to have a MAGA-packed Supreme Court? Proud that they lied under oath to get the job? If so, thank a MAGA Republican. If you enjoy seeing our rights disappear one by one, thank a MAGA Republican today. The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Hi, I'm Laura Flanders of The Laura Flanders Show, where I interview the best thinkers and doers of our time. On TV, the show premieres Sundays at 11:30 Eastern on PBS World and at the Laura Flanders Show YouTube channel. You can join my guests and me every week there in the live viewing party, and then catch us all week on public television stations. Prefer to listen? Find us on a radio station near you or subscribe to the free podcast. You'll find listings and ways to subscribe at lauraflanders.org. That's also where you'll receive my regular commentaries. I call them the F word. Here's this week's. Here's a term that's messing with our thinking: election denier. As the midterm race enters its final weeks, that phrase is turning up in political reporting as if election deniers were some sort of naturally occurring demographic group like redheads. But election deniers weren't born like redheads or southpaws. They were bred. Ideas travel through people. And so when you read a New York Times poll like the one released recently that showed 41% of Republicans and 28% of all the registered voters they polled have little or no faith in the results of this year's elections, that's no accident. People spread that doubt with intent. Likewise, we sometimes blame technology for the spread of hateful content and ideologies online. But when New York Attorney General Letitia James looked into the Buffalo Tops Market massacre, she ended up calling out one individual for having recorded the murderer's live stream of his attack and spreading that recording to the web. The massacre video didn't spread organically or by virtue of the technology or by itself. It spread because a person spread it. And that person had hope.
Don't give up, don't give up what's true.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
All right, talk me off the ledge, everybody. Talk me off the ledge. Xavier in L.A.
Hey, Randi.
Hi.
Happy Friday.
Thank you. You too.
And it's not Xavier, it's Xavier. Or, we can just keep it really simple.
I asked Brett.
I said Xavier.
It's not Xavier.
Oh, okay, so I didn't hit the hard X as well. So we're both wrong there.
Say it again.
X. The X.
Say your name.
Xavier.
Okay, we got it. Xavier.
All right. Now, with I appreciate you taking my call. Now, with the Trump investigation, this is the biggest criminal investigation in the United States. So it's going to take a little while, but we have to give it a little credit that with the AG, DOJ, this is going really fast, and also too, I had to write my notes real quick before I talk to you.
Okay.
Boom, boom, boom.
All right then, Xavier.
The sound effects are
okay,
crucial.
okay. You can just hang up on me right now. It's okay.
You
sure?
sure?
Said my name right.
Oh, that's it. You're done. You're good. You're spent. You're
No, talk to me.
You're satiated. You're sated. You're good. Okay. All right. Nick in Mississippi.
Hey.
Hey.
I haven't talked to you in a long time.
How are you?
I'm doing fine.
Good.
Listen, I'm going to talk you off the ledge, honey.
Mm-hmm. I need it.
This is a brilliant move. It is.
Okay.
Because if Merrick Garland had gone after Trump himself and other folks, the MAGAs would say that it was political. You have a special counsel. And one thing that piqued my interest in what you said there was he worked at The Hague, which means he's into human violations as well. All right? There will probably be a lot of things that Trump is going to be brought up on charges for. Okay? And here's something else I want you to consider. We all know that more than Trump was involved. We all know that he has some Republicans involved, and you have to go after the people who finance and everything. The special counsel is the perfect way to go. Nobody can say it was political.
They're gonna.
Well, yeah, but it won't. It will be obviously without basis in fact.
They're gonna.
Okay.
It doesn't matter.
No, what I'm saying.
It's like
what I'm saying
Mueller.
to you
You know,
is-
Mueller was a special counsel. Mueller was nonpartisan. Mueller was seen as if anything, a dyed-in-the-wool conservative Republican, right? A man of the law, straight up.
Yeah.
And they trashed him. The conservative, the right wing, trashed Mueller, trashed him.
I understand. I
Okay,
understand.
and then when Mueller actually declined to do anything except find Donald Trump guilty of 10 counts of to say that he could find at least 10 different episodes of obstruction of justice, but didn't indict him because of the OLC, right? You can't indict a sitting president. Then all of a sudden the Republicans were okay with him, but the whole
but let me interrupt you there. First of all, with Mueller, he was constrained on so many different levels. Okay, he didn't really do a proper investigation as far as I was concerned.
Well,
he didn't go after the money or anything like that. He was told not to do that. Now, what I'm saying to you is, this guy here, it's not just going to be Donald Trump that's going to go down. There's going to be some Republicans too. Now, yeah, they may trash him. Matter of fact, you and I can probably drink coffee over the fact that they're going to do it. But more people are paying attention now.
You think?
So, yeah. Got a lot of people.
All right.
You got a lot of people paying attention. I'm talking, Joe Sixpacks are paying attention. And when you guys start yapping at the mouth about, oh, no, it's all partisan, people are going to see right through that. And believe me, I think what's going to happen, and it's just me thinking, all right? And we can all get in trouble if you follow me, but me thinks that they're going to go ahead. He's going to go ahead. He's going to pull a bunch of folks down. This is much bigger than Donald Trump. You and I both know that. Okay? And a special counsel, I'll repeat myself now, but a special counsel is the perfect way to do it.
All right, I hear you. So you're saying Mueller was constrained because he was told, don't look at Trump's business, so he couldn't really follow the money. And
There's a lot of things that he wasn't supposed to look at.
and that Mueller couldn't indict because at that time Donald Trump was the president of the United States, and he had already said the Office of Legal Counsel prohibits the indictment of a sitting president. So you think that constrained Mueller, and that's why we got the result we got from the last special counsel that investigated Donald Trump, but that this special counsel is going to finally hold this guy to account. Okay.
Gonna go full bore.
I hear you. All right. Well, thank you for your attempt to try and talk me off the ledge. It's going to take more than a day for me to wrap my brain around. It's going to.
Hey, y'all, get a rope. Grab this girl.
Happy Thanksgiving if I don't talk to you. Thank you. I love you too. Thank you very much. Daniel in South Carolina.
I called to join you on that ledge. You and the previous caller just said it. There's some memos and norms where you don't go after a sitting president, and I don't even know why that memo exists, because sitting president shouldn't be committing crimes. You said it perfectly. Regardless of what we do or when we do it, they are going to say that it's simply political. Nobody is saying that it is simply political, that Donald Trump is announcing his candidacy 2 years before the election. Nobody is saying that it's political, that he did it right after the election in order to make the argument that it is simply political. And nobody is saying to Trump conservatives and Trump maggots that it is not political to hold somebody accountable for committing crimes. Why is nobody saying that? Why am I not hearing that on MSNBC?
Yeah, I don't know. So I agree with you, obviously. At this moment in time, I mean, like I said, I need a couple days to think this through. But obviously, he announced for the presidency to protect himself. Otherwise, why would he announce for the presidency after the third largest loss? Something history defining and defying that for the first time in since 1934, some crazy amount of time, a sitting president's party didn't lose the Senate, that a sitting president's party didn't get wiped out and lose six, right? So why did he come forward and announce after that kind of a loss, right? He did it because he's trying to buy time. He's trying to protect himself.
I would say it's because of the federal government, because of Georgia and New York state government. That's why he did it.
Yeah, and I don't know that that's going to protect him from Fani Willis in Georgia. I will tell you, next week, your lovely Lindsey Graham has to go testify in front of her grand jury.
Oh, listen, I don't claim him. You can have him.
I don't want him, but he's yours. Listen, I have to own Rick Scott. I have to own Rubio, and I have to own
yeah.
Right? So you have to own Lindsey. Sorry.
I feel your pain.
Yeah, I know you do. Well, thank you. I mean, like I said, we're going to need a couple days to, think this all the way through, figure out whether or not there's a large amount of ramp-up time that will, keep them from, actually being able to do anything to Donald Trump in the next year. Holy crap. Gary in Fort Lauderdale.
Oh, Randy, I have bad news for you.
Uh-oh.
Justice did not die in America today. It was in a coma until today, but today it was pronounced dead.
It flatlined?
Yep.
Oh,
and why do you say Lindsey Graham has to testify next week? Why should he testify? Nobody else does.
No, he has to. He went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said that he has to testify, so now he has to show up.
He just won't show up. I'm sure he won't. I mean, he'll be told to by Trump not to show up. That's my guess.
Well, we'll see next Tuesday.
If he does show up, he won't open his mouth.
He could invoke his Fifth Amendment right to not self-incriminate. He absolutely could, because look, what they want to talk to him about is the phone calls that he made saying, can't you just throw out the mail-in ballots? Can't you just throw them out? That's what he was calling Georgia. The guy's from South Carolina calling Georgia. And that's what he was calling Georgia to ask. Couldn't you just ignore some of those ballots? Couldn't you just not count them?
You know, Randy, when we saw Giuliani squirm off that hook last week, you knew this was coming.
I kind of did, but, I heard people talking about it. I know Lawrence Tribe, the constitutional scholar, is with you and me on this school of thought. And other people are saying, well, maybe this case was so well developed that it's ready for indictment. And Garland just didn't want to be the one to do it because it would or could or might seem political. So he staffed it out to a independent counsel.
Or maybe he was threatened or paid off.
I don't know, but he is a member of the Federalist Society. Merrick Garland, yeah.
Wonderful.
I know. Yeah, he is. But, listen, I don't even want to get into, denigrating any of the players here. I just want to kind of stay focused on the strategy, what it could be. And like I said, there are two schools of thought. One, it's ready to be indictable. It's indictable now, and he just handed off. And the other is, no, buying time.
Clear for takeoff.
911, what's your emergency?
America's healthcare system is broken, and people are dying.
Welcome to Code WACK, where we shine a light on America's callous healthcare system, how it hurts us, and what we can do about it. I'm your host, Brenda Gazar. This time on Code WACK, what are some of the possible dangers and pitfalls of Medicare Advantage plans? And how do they respond to patients' needs differently compared to traditional Medicare? To find out, We spoke to Dr. Ed Weisbart, a retired family physician and a national board member of Physicians for a National Health Program.
So when Medicare pays your claims, as it does in original or traditional Medicare, Parts A and B, that's their only job, is to pay your claims. They don't get in the way. They're not trying to make money off of you. You have Medicare as your health insurance. You go to the doctor or hospital that you want, and Medicare pays your claims. But if you have opted into Medicare Advantage, Medicare itself is no longer paying your claims at all. Instead, Medicare is paying an insurance company to pay your claims. And the insurance company, as we all learned from having employer-based insurance and other things, is really not out to just pay your claims. They're out to make money off of this. And so the more often they can avoid paying your claims or deny paying your claims or delay paying your claims or make it complicated for anybody to get a claim paid, the more they can do that, the more money they can make. So they're no longer really focused on you. They're now focused on their own profits. And that's completely different than having the government just pay your claims, than having Medicare pay your claims.
A full Code Wax story on ProgressiveVoices.com and on the PV app. Catch all our episodes by subscribing to Code Whack wherever you find your podcast. This podcast is powered by Heal California.
Now, the top of the hour on the Progressive Voices channel on TuneIn presents the Green News Report.
For the first time ever since the adoption of the United Nations Climate Convention, parties agreed to introduce the loss and damage funding as an agenda item.
Crunch time for an agreement at the United Nations Climate Summit in Egypt. NASA projects sea levels will rise a foot by 2050. Plus,
we are now seeing that out-and-out denial is making an absolute comeback.
Climate disinformation is surging, deceiving the public about solutions.
All of that deception and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and, speaking of deception, snarky comment.
The socialist disaster known as the Green New Deal, which is destroying our country, will be immediately terminated.
If anyone could pretend to terminate a pretend non-existent climate policy, it would be Donald Trump. This is your Green News Report. I'm just sorry he didn't tell us that story about the windmills and not being able to watch TV at night or whatever the hell that is.
Yeah, disgraced former President Donald Trump repeated his well-worn torrent of lies and disinformation about the accelerating climate crisis and the booming U.S. clean energy sector in announcing this week that he has launched a third run for the U.S. presidency in 2024.
And America didn't go wild.
Moving on, October 2022 ranked as the fourth hottest October ever recorded since record-keeping began in the mid-1800s, according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. They project that 2022 will clock in as one of the top 10 warmest years on record, despite a strong La Niña in the Pacific Ocean, which typically exerts a cooling influence on the global climate.
But Donald Trump said it wasn't going to warm for 300 years.
Yeah, he's wrong.
They say the ocean will rise 1/8 of an inch over the next 200 to 300 years.
A new paper from NASA this week confirms previous studies projecting that sea levels will rise on average by at least a foot by 2050 along the U.S. Gulf and East coasts, thanks to man-made global warming. Again, that is a foot within 30 years, exposing billions of dollars worth of coastal infrastructure and development to higher storm surge and high tide nuisance flooding.
Gosh, I hope it doesn't hurt Mar-a-Lago.
In Egypt, it's crunch time in the final days of the UN Climate Summit, COP27, where the formal 2-year process is now underway to reach a global deal for rich countries who are primarily responsible for causing the climate crisis to compensate poorer nations for loss and damage from mounting climate impacts. In an interview with Democracy Now!, youth climate leader Vanessa Nakate of Uganda warned that poor nations are already reaching the limits of their capacity to adapt to repeated extreme weather disasters.
We need this money to be able to go to communities that need it, and for this money to go in form of small, accessible grants. The current and historic emitters, they need to take responsibility for the climate crisis crisis, and they need to pay for this crisis.
Also, the U.S. backed a proposal for the COP27 closing statement to call for a phase down of all fossil fuels. And the G7, the group of 7 major economies, launched an insurance initiative to provide fast financial aid for nations hit by extreme weather disasters.
At the last COP26, didn't they almost come out with a statement calling for the phase out of fossil fuels?
Yes, they did.
So this time they might actually do it?
Maybe.
We'll see.
A renewed blitz of climate disinformation coming largely from right-wing media is jeopardizing progress at COP27 by undermining public perception of climate risks and solutions and advocating delay. That's according to a new report by the Climate Action Against Disinformation Coalition. Their analysis found that Americans who watch Fox News are most likely to hold false beliefs about climate change and clean energy. They don't know about the global scientific consensus on man-made climate change, or that renewable energy is now cheaper and more reliable than fossil fuels.
Well, I hear it's not going to be a problem for another 300 years.
The Green New Deal and the environment, which they say may affect us in 300 years.
A second report exposed that fossil fuel companies are spending millions to run hundreds of advertisements a day in English-speaking countries that mislead the public about viable climate solutions. But some good news. Nigeria has become the first country in Africa to enact regulations to cut methane emissions from its oil and gas sector. Here in the U.S., Washington State has mandated next-generation electric heat pumps in all new residential construction. And finally, France passed a law mandating that all large parking lots must be covered by solar panel canopies within 5 years, which is projected to generate electricity to power more than 8 million homes.
Very cool. That's something you have been calling for years.
Oh, yes.
For much more on all of those stories and the ones we couldn't get to today, check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. Find, follow, and share us planet-wide on the Facebooks and the Twitters at Green News Report. We'll see you after the Thanksgiving holiday.
Mary had a little man. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
Oh, this was fun to watch on Fox News. There's Laura Trump there, as you might recognize, with Stuart Varney. Stuart Varney telling Laura that, the Trumpian era is dead.
Those of us on the outside looking at it, it didn't seem that he got the old magic. You know what I mean?
Oh, well, I highly disagree with that. Look, for Donald Trump, from the very beginning, from the first day he came down the escalator in 2015 in Trump Tower, it's never been about elected officials, politicians, people, in the swamp in D.C. It's been about the American people. And if you look around the room last night, you had people from all different walks of life. The energy there at Mar-a-Lago was absolutely incredible. It really did, to me, feel like the 2015, 2016 campaign.
No magic. Nobody felt it. Nobody was thrilled by it. Everybody was bored. It was boring, Laura. It was boring. It was the kiss of death boring. That's how boring it was. So anyway, it's interesting. It's fun to watch Fox stick the shiv in the exact same people that they propped up, that they ignored their wrongdoing, they ignored their criminality, they ignored their crime sprees, they ignored every breaking of every tradition, every norm in this nation. All for a little bit of power. It is really, at the end, it's Fargo, okay? And it's a beautiful day. It's just a beautiful day. And what was it all for? For a little bit of money, for a little bit. It's all basically a morality play gone bad, for the Trumps. It's just unbelievable. The evangelicals have now just thrown Trump overboard, which is real rich, I have to tell you. The comments from the evangelical right, from the leaders of the evangelical, right-wing churches, they're now all backstabbing Donald Trump and pretending like they never really liked him. He wasn't really their guy. They just kind of went along to get along, kind of a thing. That they really didn't really support him the way that you might think. That's a lie. And they're not supposed to bear false witness. They're not supposed to be liars on top of everything else. They went along with Donald Trump. They actually covered up for all his crimes. They excused his disgusting behavior, his pee grabbing, a disdain for every other human being's right to be a human being. They went along with every single crime he ever committed. They pretended they didn't see it, or they said they excused it. And they said it was okay, all because they wanted a little bit of power. It was all about power. It was all about fundraising. It was all about money. It was all about their prosperity gospel and enriching themselves. And now the key evangelical figures who did support every damn thing that he did are now backing off. This is Mike Evans. He told the Washington Post, quote, "Donald Trump can't save America. He can't even save himself." He was one of the evangelicals that went to the White House and gave him awards. And this was way after he said, well, when you're a star, you can do whatever you want. You could do whatever you like. You can grab him by the P word. These are people that knew that, he was a disgusting, disgraceful example of a human being, that he wasn't religious at all, didn't, would mock everything that they would hold, supposedly dear. And now they're turning around going, This is amazing. Robert Jeffress, one of the evangelical advisors to Donald Trump, he said this: He used us to win the White House. We had to close our mouths and our eyes when he said things that horrified us. I can't do that anymore. Oh, now you can't. Why? Because he's not going to win, because he doesn't represent a path to power for you. You never cared about Jesus. You never cared about salvation. You never cared about other people's souls. You never cared about any of it. None of it. You cared about power. Power. And Jeffress said, the Republican Party is headed toward a civil war that I have no desire or need to be a part of, but I will happily support Trump again if he wins the nomination. Talk about having your cake and eating it too. Oh, it's disgusting. And James Robeson of Life Outreach International, quote, if Mr. Trump can't stop his petty issues, how does he expect people to stop major issues? I don't even know what that means, but he said he tweeted at Donald Trump, quote, sir, you act like a little elementary school child and you shoot yourself in the foot every morning you get up and open your mouth. The more you keep your mouth closed, the more successful you're going to be. He wouldn't say if he would support Trump if he got the nomination in 2024. And another evangelical figure who endorsed Trump was even more blunt. Okay, he spoke to the Washington Times, which is a completely right-wing rag. His name's Everett Piper. He said the take-home of this past week is simple: Donald Trump has to go. If he's our nominee in 2024, we will get destroyed. That's the only reason why they're separating themselves from him, not because he's an embarrassment, not because he's a sinner, not because he's an irredeemable, unrepentant piece of dew, not because he's anti-democratic, not because he's an autocrat, not because he's I alone can fix it, cult of one. No, they're doing it because they don't think he's the path to power anymore. That's just sick. So when you look at, the annals of law and you look at justice in this country and you start to think maybe justice is dead. Maybe we're not a nation of laws anymore. Maybe we are a nation of cults and men and blah, blah, blah. Well, I just want you to know that the cults of men are also unreliable. You're going to have to go to yourself for salvation. You're going to have to go to yourself for answers. You're going to have to go inside, go deep, and figure out where you stand on democracy and issues of massive importance to the continuation of this here experiment known as America. Because I just don't think there's anybody out there that's very interested in solving those riddles for you. I think it's all become such a player's game. where the playing field is tilted towards the powerful, the elite, the well-connected, the swamp. And Donald Trump was always part of the swamp. And the evangelical leaders are all part of the swamp. They actually bet on the swamp. They were rooting for the swamp to win. All to enrich themselves. They need one more plane. They need one more jet. They need one more Rolls Royce. They need one more, mansion. So sad. So sad that people can be so bamboozled and so conned by one. I don't know. By the time Donald Trump ever faces the bar of justice for anything that he's ever done in his incredibly sick and twisted and horrific life, that should have been, a life of philanthropy, a life of giving, a life of decency, he was given every opportunity just by birth. Just by birth, just by being born to Fred, he inherited a large freaking chunk of change. Could have done so much good in this world. But no. He used his money to buy ads, to be racist, to say, the Central Park Five, and insist that they go to jail, that they were guilty before anybody even knew anything about that crime. And of course, they were not guilty. He used his fortune to discriminate against black renters, wouldn't show them apartments. His life was so full of hatred and judgment. So full of, self-enrichment and power and the lust for it. So full of, even gluttony. Every one of the 7 deadly sins. But the evangelicals were willing to go along because they thought it was the path to power for them. Really sad, really sick, really twisted. Indecent, actually. Unholy. It was an abortion. An abortion. The whole Trump presidency, the whole evangelical community. It's an abortion, something evil and unholy.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes. Randi Rhodes. Randi Rhodes. RandiRhodes.com.
America's political, corporate, and media establishments were cocksure about their prognostications that a powerful red wave was about to hit America in this month's elections. It would sweep Democrats out and push Republicans into office all across America, they exclaimed. How shocking and embarrassing, then, that their raging wave turned out to be just a little ripple. Republicans ran poorly and many Democrats ran well. Still, the Democratic Party as a whole should have done better if its don't-rock-the-boat leadership had been gutsier, more progressive, and, yes, more democratic. Well, murmured the party's Washington hierarchy, we can't get too far ahead of the people. Really? Why not ask the people themselves? That's the virtue of the ballot initiative system. It allows grassroots groups to put issues up for a vote, rather than letting the public agenda be controlled by a clique of lobbyists, legislators, and party line followers. This year, there were 132 of these initiatives on the ballots in 37 states, and more on local ballots. And vote after vote showed that the people are way ahead of the political insiders in support of strong progressive policies. By big margins, 3 states said to hell with a Republican Supreme Court enshrining women's abortion rights in their state constitutions. South Dakota, supposedly a right-wing bastion, shoved their GOP governor and legislators aside to expand Medicaid health coverage to the state's low-income families. In bright red Nebraska, nearly 60% of voters said yes to a $15 minimum wage. A big majority in Illinois amended the state constitution to guarantee collective bargaining rights for workers. 70% of New Mexico voters made funding of early childhood education a constitutional requirement. This is Jim Hightower saying, for more information, go to ballotpedia.org.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1785. That was the day the General Society of Mechanics and Tradesmen of the City of New York was founded. 22 skilled craftsmen with the motto, by hammer in hand, all arts do stand, met on Pine Street to form a benevolent organization that could provide culture, education, and social services to craftsmen and their families. 2 months later, founders met for their annual meeting. They represented represented many of the city's trades, including hatters, butchers, sailmakers, bolters, and comb makers. In his book, Chance Democratic, historian Sean Willett states, the General Society was intended to be a semi-political umbrella organization for all of the city's independent mechanics, to help oversee the trades and secure favorable legislation from local and national government. The group captured the ideal of mutuality and craft pride essential to artisan fraternities since the Middle Ages. The General Society opened one of the city's first free schools at a time when there were no public schools. It established a tuition-free Mechanics Institute, the General Society Library, and lecture series. The Mechanics Institute, founded in 1858, continues to provide free evening trades-related instruction. The library, established in 1820, is the second oldest library in New York City. It is also one of the few remaining membership-circulated libraries. Its collections and archives span 2 centuries. The General Society continues its tradition of public lectures in the form of the Labor, Literature, and Landmark series. More recently, it has added the Artesian Lecture series that features lectures by master artisans. The series also promotes the work and art of skilled craftsmen. The General Society has been at its current location at 20 West 44th Street since 1885.
I watched it on TV.
All things Randy at RandyRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
I think this might be the new minority leader. This is Hakeem Jeffries from New York.
So-called GOP red wave turned into a red wedding for extreme MAGA Republicans and election deniers in race after race after race all across the country. Here's the Republican response. The cult leader should run again. And we're going to double and triple down on extremism. We're going to double and triple down on a nationwide abortion ban. We're going to double and triple down on attacks on our democracy, and we want to eliminate Social Security and Medicare. That's extraordinary. But that is the modern-day Republican Party, as compared to Democrats who deliver big things for the American people on the issues that matter, including around the economy, job creation, lower costs, and safer communities.
And climate change. Just saying, Hakeem. So I think that might be the new minority leader of the House. And, you know, he's not incorrect when he says that the modern Republican Party is so extreme that it was rejected in a red wedding betrayal of the red wave ideology, of the red wave belief that it was going to happen. And I know this because Josh Hawley, yes, Josh Hawley, you know, one of America's working people. What did he go to, Harvard, Yale, both? Yeah. Josh Hawley, actually, you know, he is a Republican senator from Missouri who has presidential aspirations, serves in the United States Senate currently. He actually wrote an editorial today that the Washington Post printed. I'm surprised the paper didn't just burst into flames with the amount of lying that went on here. But here's what his first statement in the first sentence of his first paragraph for his editorial debut in the Washington Post said today, quote, "The old Republican Party is dead. It has been wasting away for years now." You mean the Trump years, Josh? You support it? I'm telling you right now, the evangelicals are going to burst into flames. Josh Hawley's going to burst into flames with the Graham when he puts his hand on the Bible. If he does show up for the deposition on Tuesday, it's not even a deposition. It's testimony in front of a special grand jury in Georgia, in Fulton County. Okay, if there was any such thing as you know, a God who judges good and evil, they would burst into flames right in front of your face. These people are disgusting. The way, the disingenuous way that they pose themselves, depending on the path to power, the parasitical nature of these blood-sucking, front-running phonies. the old Republican Party is dead. It's been wasting away for years now. He said this month's midterm results are the finishing blow. Oh, blow this. He says that the Republican Party has to represent America's working people. With what? Your right to work state status, your inability for people to join a union, your 100% rejection of a child tax credit? Because that's what they were about. They literally voted in lockstep against a child tax credit. They literally voted against, in lockstep, the Build Back Better. They literally voted in lockstep against the PACT Act. They voted against holding people accountable for sex trafficking just the other day. These are the most disgusting human beings I've ever seen in my life. I just, any way the wind blows, doesn't really matter. Mama killed a man, put a gun against his head. Oh, speaking of Herschel Walker. Holy crapola. This is the quality of candidate. And he's actually writing in this Washington Post editorial that he said, over the past week, we've heard this election is about nothing more than candidate quality. Wrong. Really? That's not the problem? That's not the problem.
What we need to do is get rid of those 87,000 RS agents that's going to go after you. Maybe we need to put some of those police officers in our schools to protect our kids. That's what we need to do. That's what we need to do. But yet, we got people in Washington that gotten too weak. All they want to do is let people ride their bike. That's what Senator Warnock is doing. Let Joe Biden ride his bike because he's voted with him 96% of the time, which means he don't know what he's doing or he's seen to love Joe Biden. I don't know which one it is, but I can tell you both of them is wrong.
Okay, somebody's going to have to explain to me, somebody from Georgia, what does ride your bike mean? Because he keeps saying it. He keeps saying that's all they want to do is ride your bike. I've never seen him so amped up. I've never seen him this, let's say, manic as this particular speech that he gave the other day. This one was way, way amped up. He was totally bizarre. But it's not about candidate quality, according to Josh Hawley. No. He said the problem isn't principally candidate quality. The problem is substance. For the past 2 years, the Republican establishment in Washington has capitulated on issue after issue. He said the problem was that they caved into Democrats with background checks on the Second Amendment and on building infrastructure. He said they caved in because, the infrastructure package was bipartisan. He said they shouldn't have given the infrastructure package the go-ahead. He also said that the Republican politicians who sided with Big Pharma on insulin and advocated for lower tariffs on our competitors overseas is what people were voting against. What? Your guy is definitely going down in Georgia, okay? The devil went down to Georgia. He's looking for a soul to steal. He was in a bind because he was way behind, and so he decided to tell a story about vampires.
You ever watch a stupid movie late at night hoping it's going to get better, don't get better, but you keep watching it anyway? Because the other night I was watching this movie. Called Freak Night, or some type of night, but it was about vampires. I don't know if you know vampires are some cool people, are they not? But I'm going to tell you something that I found out. A werewolf can kill a vampire. Did you know that? I never knew that, so I didn't want to be a vampire anymore. I wanted to be a werewolf. But then anyway, as I'm watching this movie, and then you can tell how stupid it is because it's 1 a.m. So I'm watching my TV. These kids watching their TV, vampire kill on their TV. So it's kind of stupid, but I'm still watching though. As I'm watching this show, what was funny, these kids had a vampire in their attic at their house. So they was watching their TV. Now I'm watching my TV, as they watching their TV, they see the vampire killer on their TV. So they win this contest to bring this actor. Now y'all got to stay with me. Bring this actor who's a vampire killer from that TV to get rid of this real life vampire in their attic.
Okay, you get it? I don't. Has nothing to do with candidate quality. It has to do with background checks and caving into the Democrats on background checks and the left's radical climate agenda. And then in parentheses and quotes, he puts infrastructure. Why? They should have voted against infrastructure. They should have voted against repairing your roads, bridges, tunnels. They should have voted against, investing in, us. This man is bizarre, okay? And then he tries to say that, he's all about the people. He's all about, he said, this is about being able to make a living. This is all that the Republicans have to represent, being able to raise a family on one paycheck. Well, you're a little late to the party. You're a little late. Yeah, no. He wants you to get woke now, he's saying. Get woke.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes. Randi Rhodes. Randi Rhodes. RandiRhodes.com.
This is Stephanie Miller, and here's what you missed.
Oh my God, they are freaking out about it's the same thing. They're all like, "Stop! Cancel all mail-in voting now!" Blah blah blah. Like, raise the voting age.
Scott Walker came back from the dead to chime in on that one.
Yeah.
And they were so hot for mail-in voting about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, in fact, I thought it was one of the better ideas they've had in the last 30 years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, also because a lot of their voters are older, and
Right, exactly. I mean, that's there's still probably a line of golf carts outside the polling place at the Villages down in Florida.
Speaking of the big announcement from Florida today, Newsmax tweeted, former President Donald Trump won't only officially announce his 2024 presidential race Tuesday, but he'll surround himself with his success stories from the 2022 midterm races, Dick Morris said on Newsmax.
Oh, God.
Oh, Lord. That's a three-reel shot of stupid, isn't it?
You just said that is some vintage bull throughout this tweet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. What will be those success stories, do you think?
Well, I think J.D. Vance is going to be working very hard up on that stage.
Just him. Yeah.
Herschel Walker hasn't lost yet.
Yeah.
Well, how do you think all this affects the Georgia runoff turnout, etc.?
Oh, I go back and forth on it, and I don't know enough of. I rely on Greg Bluestein for all of my Georgia political knowledge. I think that people are going to run away from Herschel like, lemmings over the cliff.
Yeah. After what happened,
there's no reason to vote for him. The only reason to vote for him would have been if the Senate was on the line.
Right. Yeah.
That's the only reason any sensible human being would have for voting for him, and it's a pretty bad reason, by the way. Yeah. But now there isn't one. I mean, there's no reason to vote for the guy. If Warnock was able to win the last runoff, he damn sure should be able to win this one.
Hear all this and more on the next Stephanie Miller Show.
He was elected overwhelmingly at a dark time. Years of chaos, hate, our politics used as a wedge to divide, not a common cause to unite. Democracy attacked. Joe Biden stepped forward as president for every American. These are difficult days. Years of pandemic, war in Europe driving world energy prices up, a radical Supreme Court majority, the Republican Party embracing autocracy, rejecting any positive change. There are no easy answers, no quick fixes. But in just 18 months, President Biden is making our lives better. A record 6.6 million jobs added in the first year. 600,000 manufacturing jobs. Unemployment at a historic low. Wages rising at a record pace. After years of Republican failure, President Biden is rebuilding America's infrastructure.
We've stared into the abyss of insurrection and autocracy.
Thousands of jobs, 90% no college degree needed.
And we, the people, did not flinch.
President Joe Biden.
It's never, ever, ever been a good bet to bet against America.
He's working for America.
And it still isn't.
What's your emergency?
America's healthcare system is broken and people are dying.
Welcome to Code WACK, where we shine a light on America's callous healthcare system, how it hurts us, and what we can do about it. I'm your host, Brenda Gazar. This time on Code WACK, what pitfalls does Medicare Advantage pose? And what is the Medigap trap that many people are unwittingly falling into?
Don't give up. Don't give up. What's true?
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Carrie Lake here. I wanted to reach out to you to let you know that I am still in this fight with you. For 2 years, I've been sounding the alarm about our broken election system here in Arizona, and this past week has confirmed everything we've been saying. When we called for Katie Hobbs to recuse herself over a year ago, they ridiculed us. It turns out we were right. The fox was guarding the hen house, and because of that, voters have been disenfranchised.
Carrie Loser, Lake Loser, Carrie Loser Lake is still out there. She went to Magaloco last night. Okay, that's where she is. She's here. Going to fight. She's going to fight this election denier. But, I will accept the results if I win. She had no problem with, the Secretary of State running the elections in Georgia when he was running for governor. She had no problem with that. And she had no problem with Katie Hobbs being the Secretary of State until she lost. And you know why? The Secretary of State doesn't count the votes. The county clerks count the votes. You understand that? So anyway, she's just being, a loser, a really bad one, an ugly one, a nasty one. Josh Hawley, on the other hand, he's decided he's going to do a 180. And now all of a sudden, Josh Hawley, who was an election denier, Josh Hawley, who refused to, impeach Donald Trump for the insurrection or remove him or vote, to hold him accountable for any of the violence that was visited upon the United States Capitol. Now all of a sudden, he's an uber patriot, everybody. He's an uber patriot saying that the Republican Party has been wasting away for many years now. And recently, the modern American GOP is dead. It's dead. It's time to be on the side of the working class, the working man, the families. He said work, family, and culture are the touchstones of meaning for working people across the country. They must form the bedrock of the new party agenda. The bedrock. These are people he wouldn't give a child tax credit to. These are people he wouldn't vote to expand Medicaid for. These are people he wouldn't, that they wanted to repeal and replace Obamacare without a replacement for Obamacare. These people are such front-running phonies. They are such sore losers. They are bad losers. They are just bad people. There's no question about it. This entire modern Republican Party are a bunch of historic criminals. I've never seen such parasitical behavior in my life. And then he says, it's time for proactive policy making. No nation ever got strong by consuming stuff other people make. We need an economy that produces critical goods here in this country and creates good paying jobs for working people. Meanwhile, they weren't for the CHIPS Act, which was investing in making our own semiconductors here in the United States of America and building semiconductor plants all over this country, in the heartland, in the Rust Belt, in the deindustrialized Midwest. That was us. That was us who passed that. They voted against every bit of progress that this president and the Democrats made in spite of them, including the child tax credit, which, by the way, took half of America's poorest children out of poverty. And then they let it expire, and they just don't want to vote for it. But he's sitting here preaching to me about middle America and its needs, wants, hopes, and dreams. You have no earthly connection to me. You have no earthly connection to working people, to small business owners, to people who work 2 jobs or 1 job, but work from, sleep on the floor. This is what Elon Musk, you got to be hardcore if you want to work for me. You got to spend like morning till night toiling for me, making me not regret my $44 billion spend on a social media platform when I have absolutely no experience in social media. I don't know what I'm doing, nor do I particularly care. But you're going to toil for me. You're going to work hardcore for me. You're going to sleep on the floor for me, or else don't come to work. Don't bother. I'll let the whole thing die. I'll let it break bit by bit. People are expecting that Twitter's going to disappear, that it's just going to poof, one day it's not going to disappear. It's going to break. It's going to break. Back end problems are going to start to bleed into the front end, meaning the stuff that happens on the back end, you're going to start to see on your app. You're going to start to see it on Twitter. You're going to start to see it on the platform, stuff that broke. And that's how it dies. It dies from attrition. It dies from neglect. And he always intended for that to be the way. Always. Then he'll declare bankruptcy, and so all the creditors and anybody that he owes money to won't be able to collect anything. That's just the way big business works, right? And we're supposed to be patient with them. We're supposed to, acknowledge that they're bigger than we are. They get to break rules. They get to break things. They get to take from us over and over and over again without penalty, without any consequences, because they're bigger than we are. They're bigger. And that's America. The bigger you are, the better for you. Used to be the bigger you are, the harder you fall. No, not anymore. The bigger you are, the more protection you get. The Federal Trade Commission, we laugh. He's laughing. He's literally violating the Federal Trade Commission's consent decrees. And he's laughing all the way to, the next banking experience. Unbelievable. But last night, everybody, all on Twitter, it was trending at the end of Twitter. Twitter's over. Twitter's dead. Twitter died. People were tweeting, if this is my last tweet, I just want you to know, I will never buy a Tesla, It doesn't die that way. It just breaks bit by bit by bit by bit. It's like if I don't update my plugins on my stupid little website, okay? All of a sudden you start getting 404 errors. He's not going to go to the big 404 in the sky overnight. It's just going to break bit by bit, piece by piece. He's firing even more people. They're trolling him now. I don't know if you saw this or not, but Twitter headquarters was trolled from a company across the street from Twitter headquarters with a projectionist who was, projecting, billionaire baby on his building. And he was a space Karen, they were calling him.
It is an understatement to call the last 24 hours chaotic for Twitter, or the whole time since Elon Musk bought the company. We are witnessing what could be an epic meltdown in real time. Twitter employees have rejected Elon Musk's, quote, hardcore ultimatum. And there's a mass exodus going on at the company this morning. In response, Twitter closed its offices, all of them, suspended employee badge access, leaving the company's future completely thrown into uncertainty. And take a look at this. This is the company headquarters in San Francisco. Last night, someone took it upon themselves to troll the mogul with a number of projected messages such as bankruptcy baby and, quote, worthless billionaire.
Space Karen. Subversive racist, megalomaniac. Yeah, just broadcasting that across his building with a projector. This is the new way that people make their opinions known in America now. They just Kanye was right, like that stuff. This is it now. This is the new thing. Meanwhile, he bought something we all love, and because he could buy it and take it private and answer to nobody, he's just going to let it die, and we won't be able to talk to each other. Great.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes. Randi Rhodes. Randi Rhodes. RandiRhodes.com.
Vice President Mike Pence calls his wife Karen mother, and sometimes mother. Mother does not allow father to attend events with alcohol without her being present. Mother does not allow father to have dinner with another woman. In fact, mother does not allow father to be alone in a room with another woman. Mother is an art teacher at Emmanuel Christian School, which requires employees to affirm in writing that they will not engage in homosexual sexual acts or have a transgender identity. Father's epic homophobia made him sign into law in Indiana the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, which encouraged and condoned the aggressive discrimination of gays and lesbians. Around the White House, mother is known as the bulldog and father as the pleaser. Father was placed in charge of the coronavirus response on February 26th. The 5 months that followed, more than 170,000 Americans have died. Mother and father both oppose gay marriage. In interviews, father obsessively praises Trump's broad shoulders, and cameras have repeatedly caught him looking at Trump like Cinderella. Some senators call Pence Trump's fourth wife. An official from the Reagan administration said, "I'd like my wife to look at me just for one day the way Mike Pence looks at President Trump every day they're together." Father wrote about how disgusted he was with the Republican Party because they allowed HIV-positive people to speak at the 1996 convention. Father supported the use of federal funding to treat people, quote, seeking to change their sexual behavior, unquote, otherwise known as gay conversion therapy. Father praises himself as an uber Christian, but was caught stealing campaign donations for his first congressional race and used the money to pay his mortgage, credit card bills, and even fees for golf tournaments. Meet Mike and Karen, father and mother. They're just weird AF.
A boy's best friend is his mother.
Ні слава, ні воля, ще нам, браття українці, усміхнеться доля, згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці. Запануєм ми, браття, у своїй сторонці, душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що
Excited to see members of Congress incite violence against law enforcement, enjoy armed insurrections, and the big lie? If so, thank a MAGA Republican. If you think election results should only count when Republicans win, thank a MAGA Republican today. The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Hi, I'm Laura Flanders of The Laura Flanders Show, where I interview the best thinkers and doers of our time. On TV, the show premieres Sundays at 11:30 Eastern on PBS World and at the Laura Flanders Show YouTube channel. You can join my guests and me every week there in the live viewing party, and then catch us all week on public television stations. Prefer to listen? Find us on a radio station near you or subscribe to the free podcast. You'll find listings and ways to subscribe at lauraflanders.org. That's also where you'll receive my regular commentaries. I call them the F word. Here's this week's. Here's a term that's messing with our thinking: election denier. As the midterm race enters its final weeks, that phrase is turning up in political reporting as if election deniers were some sort of naturally occurring demographic group like redheads. But election deniers weren't born like redheads or southpaws. They were bred.
Fatality. This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
It's the end of an era.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi passing the torch on Capitol Hill.
For me, the hours come for a new generation to lead the Democratic caucus that I so deeply respect.
Pelosi was the first and only female Speaker of the House.
When I first came to the floor at 6 years old, never would I have thought that someday I would go from homemaker to House Speaker.
An icon to Democrats and a villain to Republicans, Pelosi was a polarizing figure who spent 2 decades as the House Democratic leader, and many Republicans are happy to see her go.
One-party Democrat rule in Washington is finished. We have fired Nancy Pelosi.
She took the Speaker's gavel for the first time in 2007, and in her farewell address paid homage to the presidents she worked with.
I have enjoyed working with 3 presidents.
She notably left one out, Donald Trump, who she clashed with, pointing him down during a cabinet meeting, sauntering out of the West Wing in sunglasses and tearing up a copy of his State of the Union from the dais in the House chamber. Her move comes just weeks after her husband Paul was assaulted inside their San Francisco home. Pelosi thanking the audience for their support in the aftermath. Her exit opens the door for a new crop of leaders. Chief among them, New York's Hakeem Jeffries, who's the favorite to take over as Democratic leader. Jeffries would be the first black leader of either party in Congress and will face a Republican majority ready to take direct aim at the Biden White House.
This is an investigation of Joe Biden, the President of the United States.
All this while Pelosi takes on an emeritus role, still serving in Congress, guiding her successors. The Speaker reflecting on her historic career in 2019 with Savannah.
You probably are the most powerful woman in government.
In the United States, you know.
Yes. That's true. Do you think about that as a personal accomplishment?
No, I think of it as a responsibility.
She's a badass. And it's the end of an era. She is a complete and total badass, okay? She didn't give a damn what people called her. She didn't give a damn if people judged her. She didn't give a flip about her public image. She cared about moving legislation for the American people. Her primary impetus, her primary, a goal was to make things better for children who she believed were the most important citizens in America. And she governed that way. Okay. And she understood every single one of the members of her caucus, which are Democrats that span all definitions of, of life. Okay. You had your blue dogs, your yellow dogs, you had your progressive caucus, you had the Congressional Black Caucus, the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. I mean, all these disparate groups of people all coming together under one leader who understood what they needed to succeed, not necessarily what they wanted, but always what they needed to succeed, and made sure they had a pathway to what they needed in order to prevail, in order to succeed, in order to, get their constituents to understand what the issue was and go with them on this journey. She literally thwarted some of the worst legislation. Do you remember when George W. Bush tried to privatize Social Security? Do you remember that? She made it go away, okay? She organized and made it go away. And she never hogged the credit for anything. Nothing ever. And, listen, there were lots of times I disagreed with her. Lots of times I wanted her to go further. But I'm not in the caucus. I didn't understand, what she knew about each and every member of the caucus. And she was able to not bring a piece of legislation to the floor without knowing whether or not she had the votes for it. She was measured. She was smart. She didn't give a damn about herself. She was selfless. She was strikingly effective. And, for this, she became the boogeyman to the right. For this, she became a fundraising tool for the right. And for this, her husband, at 82 years old, got his head bashed in. And instead of Republicans saying all political violence is bad, we denounce it, we repudiate it, we don't accept it, they decided to make conspiracy theories up about it. They're very sad people. They really are. They're very sad and sick people. She was just, she's still there. I mean, she's still going to be there to, advise. And I'm sure that whoever gets the leadership position, and I'm guessing it is Hakeem Jeffries from New York, which is good because those 4 seats, they screwed up the gerrymander in New York. They were supposed to redistrict in New York after the census, and they did, and they screwed it up so bad that the court not only rejected their map, the Democrats' map, but appointed a special master then to draw the map, not an independent commission, which is what Michigan went with, which produced the most amazing equal result. I mean, you had Republicans and Democrats equally represented in their district, and then whoever showed up, and voted, won. Oh, there's a concept. Brother David.
Sister. Preach. It's true. Here I am on a fraught, frozen fractured, front-running, phony, fascist Friday. We are literally, I'm looking at my backyard right now, and it looks like the Winter Palace in Dr. Zhivago. Yeah, it's real cold, but we're blue.
But that's pretty. That's so pretty, though.
It is very pretty. A moment of salute to La Pelosi, whom I also frequently disagreed with, especially the 40 years in California, and she's still there. You know,
and
remember
she
when
produced.
He was still there in the
but
Senate,
she
and
produced. She produced.
Boy, did she produce!
I
Absolutely.
mean, everything from the ACA to preventing the privatization of Social Security under W, all the way down to this particular administration with a divided House and Senate. She was able to get infrastructure, the PACT Act, the CHIPS Act. The Inflation Reduction Act, which was really a climate change investment, and a way allowing Medicare to negotiate the price of prescription drugs with Big Pharma, something that has never, ever, ever been possible before. I mean, this was amazing leadership. Sorry.
I agree. Yeah. Remember when Shrub's second term and they lost, we'd got a wampum, and she put on the head scarf and she went over to Saudi Arabia because you just don't know. Yeah, she's always on top of it.
Amazing. Nobody outworked her. Nobody outthought her.
No, I'm with you there.
Yeah.
I'm totally with you. La Pelosi, that's who she is and that's who she'll be. And you had a caller last week that brought up the idea of her and Steny Hoyer and other seniors talking to some of these incoming, maybe in a shaky seat, Republicans. There are precedents for that in our history. Because here's the thing. Quick shout out to the chat room. Hi, chat room. You know what to do. California is still counting. And while the greedy oligarchic Putin heads have technically got control of the House, it is going to be by the slimmest of margins. And everything they do is going to have a spotlight turned on them.
They're not going to do anything except investigate. They're not going to do anything. Josh Hawley could write all he wants about how he's for the working man. Exactly. They're not going to pass one single solitary piece of legislation.
My point entirely.
Right.
And self-evident. Long game, sister. Long game. We have seen last week's election, but the first kick down that,
loser path. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Right.
There's still not just that there's more of us. There's more of us that are getting it. Your previous caller today brought that up, that people are starting to pay attention.
Yeah.
You think?
I mean, think about this, okay? So Nancy Pelosi's husband is beaten with a hammer.
Thank you.
Okay, by some Republican acolyte, some sick psycho kid who believed all the bull crap that the Republicans have shoveled into his brain over the last 4 or 5 years, right? And you look at the way that Nancy Pelosi handled it. We had a midterm election coming. She was calm. She was cool. She was collected. Her composure didn't affect the battle plan. Okay. And yet I'm sure there were some people who voted because they thought the political violence had gone too far. There's no question. But can you imagine if this had happened the other way and Trump was on honestly, he would have doubled down, tripled down on violent response. You need to respond to their violence by being violent to them.
Gorgeous girdles for everyone, Randy.
Thank you.
And it requires us all working together, and I believe we are.
I do too. Stay warm, stay safe.
You as well.
Thank you. Bye. Enjoy it. Yeah, it's beginning to look a lot like over the river and through the woods to grandmother's house we go up there. He's in Michigan. My friend Rebecca. Hi, Rebecca. She's in Grand Isle, New York. That's right near Buffalo. She's very excited about the snow. She loves the snow. But we're talking 5 feet. Which is too much of a good thing, I think, because that's very heavy. But stay safe, stay warm, have some nice food, and start cooking, everybody. Start cooking. We'll be here next week, Monday and Tuesday. So see you then.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes. Randi Rhodes. RandiRhodes.com.
911, what's your emergency?
America's healthcare system is broken, and people are dying.
Welcome to Code WACK, where we shine a light on America's callous healthcare system, how it hurts us, and what we can do about it. I'm your host, Brenda Gazar. This time on Code WACK, What are some of the possible dangers and pitfalls of Medicare Advantage plans? And how do they respond to patients' needs differently compared to traditional Medicare? To find out, we spoke to Dr. Ed Weisbart, a retired family physician and a national board member of Physicians for a National Health Program.
So when Medicare pays your claims, as it does in original or traditional Medicare, Parts A and B, that's their only job, is to pay your claims. They don't get in the way. They're not trying to make money off of you. You have Medicare as your health insurance. You go to the doctor or hospital that you want, and Medicare pays your claims. But if you have opted into Medicare Advantage, Medicare itself is no longer paying your claims at all. Instead, Medicare is paying an insurance company to pay your claims. And the insurance company, as we all learned from having employer-based insurance and other things, is really not out to just pay your claims. They're out to make money off of this. And so the more often they can avoid paying your claims or deny paying your claims or delay paying your claims or make it complicated for anybody to get a claim paid, the more they can do that, the more money they can make. So they're no longer really focused on you. They're now focused on their own profits. And that's completely different than having the government just pay your claims, than having Medicare pay your claims.
The full Code WAC story on ProgressiveVoices.com and on the PV app. Catch all our episodes by subscribing to Code WAC wherever you find your podcast. This podcast is powered by Heal California, a nonprofit that uplifts the voices of those fighting for healthcare reform around the country. Until next time, stay healthy.
Now, the top of the hour on the Progressive Voices channel on TuneIn presents the Green News Report.
For the first time ever since the adoption of the United Nations Climate Convention, parties agreed to introduce the loss and damage funding as an agenda item.
Crunch time for an agreement at the United Nations Climate Summit in Egypt. NASA projects sea levels will rise a foot by 2050. Plus,
we are now seeing that out-and-out denial is making an absolute comeback.
Climate disinformation is surging, deceiving the public about solutions.
All of that deception and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and, speaking of deception, snarky comment.